She beat a Wimbledon champion on Friday. 48 hours later, the world number one was crying in a press conference. And by Wednesday, a 21-year-old from Manila had an entire country calling her the future queen of tennis. If you think that's just a nice story, stay with me, because what happens in the next 15 minutes is going to change how you watch women's tennis forever. And there's a twist near the end of this video that even the tour's own former players did not see coming. Before I go any further, I need you to do something for me, and I mean it. If this is your first time here, do not scroll past this. Hit that subscribe button right now, because I promise you, if you leave before the end of this video, you are going to miss the one piece of information that explains everything that happened after Wimbledon this year. This channel exists because people like you refuse to accept the surface-level story the mainstream sports media feeds you. We dig deeper. We connect the dots nobody else connects. And if you want to be part of the conversation before the U.S. Open blows this whole story wide open, subscribing right now is the only way you will not miss it. Okay, let's get into it. It starts on a Friday. Center court, Wimbledon. A 21-year-old named Alexandra Eala walks out to play the defending Wimbledon champion, ranked third in the world. Nobody outside the Philippines is talking about this match before it starts. Nobody. And then it happens. 7-6, 6-2. Eala wins in straight sets. Not a fluke, not a walkover where the champion was injured. A clean dominant. Straight sets went over a reigning Grand Slam champion on the grass she was supposed to own. Twitter did not know what to do with itself. Tennis forums lit up instantly. But here's the part that should give you chills. Nobody knew yet that this was only the first domino. 48 hours later, on that same court, the actual world number one, Aryna Sabalenka, walks out to play Naomi Osaka in the fourth round. And what happens next is a kind of collapse that ends up in highlight reels for years. Straight sets. Sabalenka is out. Her first straight sets loss at a major since 2020. The number one player in the world, gone, in the same tournament, on the same grass. One round before the 21-year-old from Manila even played her own fourth-round match. Do the math with me here. Eala outlasted the world number one by an entire round. Let that sink in for a second, because the internet certainly did. 2 days after that, Eala's own run-ins too, in the fourth round, 3 sets, 6-4 for 6, 6-3 against Jasmine Paolini. She led. She could not close it out. It is a real loss, a painful one. But listen to what she said afterward, because Wimbledon's own official channel used this exact line as the title of her post-match video. She said it would be the honor of her life to inspire others. 21 years old, hours removed from the biggest defeat of her career, and that is the sentence she chooses. Not excuses, not bitterness, honor. And this is where it gets interesting, because while Eala was still sitting with that loss, something happened back home in the Philippines that nobody was prepared for. The Bank of the Philippine Islands, her sponsor since 2023, did not post a normal congratulations message. They posted 2 words, rising higher. Underneath it, her photo, career high world number 28. And the caption underneath that photo was addressed, in their own words, to every girl with ruffled socks and light-up sneakers. Read that again. A national bank did not release a press statement. They released what felt like a piece of national poetry. And I want you to sit with that for a moment, because we are about to get into exactly why the timing of that post was not a coincidence at all. Stick around, because the next part of the story involves a pattern that Sabalenka herself may not want you to remember. Here's where the story stops being just a feel-good underdog tale and starts becoming something with real tension in it. Aryna Sabalenka has a documented history of how she responds when a younger player beats her at the biggest moment. Go back to the French Open final. Sabalenka loses to Coco Gauff, and in front of the entire world's cameras, in comments verified by outlets covering the match, she said Gauff won not because she played incredible, but because Sabalenka made all those mistakes herself. She apologized for it afterward. She called her own comments completely unprofessional, in her own words. But the pattern was already out there in public. When Sabalenka loses to a rising star, her first instinct is to shrink the win instead of crediting the opponent. And that is exactly why a thread on the tennis subreddit exploded during Wimbledon week. with a single sentence that people could not stop quoting. Someone wrote that Sabalenka probably does not realize yet that she picked the absolute worst possible player to have a salty moment against. Because this time, the tennis internet already knows where the sympathy is going, and it is not toward the two-time defending U.S. Open champion. It is toward the 21-year-old who just outlasted her by a full round at the tournament that broke her. Now here's the part that should genuinely surprise you, because it is not fans saying this. It is not hype accounts. It is a room full of former top 20 ATP professionals. Steve Johnson, a former world number 21, a U.S. Open quarterfinalist, 12 years on tour, co-host of a major tennis podcast alongside other former top 20 players, said on the record on that podcast that Alexandra Eala is currently a bigger commercial draw for women's tennis than both Coco Gauff and Aryna Sabalenka. Read that sentence one more time. A 12-year tour veteran, surrounded by other former elite professionals, ranking a 21-year-old from the Philippines above the actual world number one in drawing power. That is not a fan poll. That is a sport's own alumni telling you where the center of gravity has physically moved. And when one of the most respected tennis journalists working today framed Eala's upset as the single biggest story of the tournament in his own newsletter, that was a professional class closing ranks around the same conclusion the fans had already reached on their own. But here's the twist that almost nobody is talking about yet, and it is the reason I told you to stick around. Southeast Asia, an entire region of the tennis world, has never, not once, in the history of the Open era, produced a top 30 WTA singles player. Not once. And now Filipino corporate money, real institutional money, is treating a 21-year-old not like an athlete who got lucky, but like a decade-long brand and cultural symbol for an entire economy. That is a completely different level of investment than a normal sponsorship deal. That is a country deciding, in real time, that this is their moment on the world stage, and they are not waiting for the rankings to catch up before they say it out loud. And the calendar ahead makes this even more tense. The Canadian Open in Cincinnati are next, two of the biggest hardcourt tournaments on the calendar, and for the first time in her career, Eala will be seeded going in. After that comes the U.S. Open, where Sabalenka is a two-time defending champion, and where she will now be walking and carrying every unanswered question from this entire summer. If the current trajectory holds, breaking into the top 20 by the end of the hardcourt swing is not some wild prediction anymore. It is simple arithmetic based on where she already stands. So here's what actually happened in one single week in July. A 21-year-old beat a defending Wimbledon champion in straight sets. The reigning world number one lost in straight sets on the same court 1 round earlier. A 12-year tour veteran surrounded by former elite pros said out loud that this 21-year-old is now a bigger draw than the woman sitting at world number one. And an entire nation stopped waiting for permission to celebrate her and started building the narrative themselves. That is not a highlight reel. That is a shift happening in real time, and most of the tennis world has not caught up to it yet. Now here's a real question, the one I actually want an honest answer to, not a soft one. Will Alexandra Eala be ranked higher than Aryna Sabalenka this time next year? Yes or no? Do not hedge on this one. Drop your answer in the comments right now, because I am telling you, we are coming back to pull up this exact comment section the moment the U.S. Open draw is released, and I want your name on record before the hardcourt swing settles this argument one way or another. If you are not subscribed yet, this is the video that decides whether you get to see how this story ends, because the Canadian Open is coming, Cincinnati is right behind it, and the moment Eala walks into Flushing Meadows as a seeded threat to a two-time defending champion, this channel is going to have every single receipt, and I want you here when it happens. See you in the next one.